1 in 5 Americans suffer from chronic pain. Many are now using CBD for relief.
Activists are hoping pot could be legalized nationwide by the end of 2019.
When you look at premium cannabis, the Illinois House approved legalizing recreational marijuana.
Welcome to The Budding Report, a weekly show centered around all things cannabis. Please join us in welcoming our host, Charles Horton, and his co-host, Melissa Nasits, as they share the latest in cannabis news, conduct interviews with top leaders in the cannabis space, and promote some of the latest in science and innovation. And now to our host, Charles Horton.
Well, welcome to the Budding Report. My name is Melissa Nasits, and I am your host today since Charles is out. Luckily enough, he is getting the COVID vaccine, but he's having a little bit of a reaction, so he's feeling a little under the weather for now, but it's a good, bad situation. So our thoughts are with him, and we miss you today. I'm all by myself here, but I do have my wonderful co-hosts that are joining me via Skype. So welcome to Christian and Chris. So how are you doing today, gentlemen?
I'm doing fine. Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm very good, very good. Spring is among us, and it's getting closer and closer. So one of my favorite times of the year, so I'm looking forward to it. How about
Absolutely.
you, Chris?
I'm doing great here in Austin as well. Looking forward to a great show, Melissa.
We do. We have a great show in line. We have Mary Adams. She is the owner of CBD Chef Mary. We've had her on the show before. We're very excited to have her back. I've got one of her books in hand, so I look forward to finding out a little bit more about this. I haven't had a chance to delve into it. I just got it, but I look forward to testing it out. We've also got Kathryn Blackwell and Chelsea Mulligan. They're the co-founders of the Open Door, so I look forward to finding a little bit more about that. But we're going to go ahead and roll right into the news. So we've got a really interesting news article. I wasn't quite sure how to take it. In fact, I think I had my hackles up a little bit about it, but I'm going to kick it over to Chris. He's going to give us sort of a synopsis, and then I think we're really going to focus on our resident doctor in the house to tell us a little bit more about this. So, Chris, why don't you tell us about this news article?
Yes, absolutely. I thought this was an important news article for us to discuss this week because it's out of the New York Times, which is probably the most read paper in the country. And I believe that this article that we read about marijuana and its medicinal effects has some misinformation. The article has a very negative slant on the current state of the research. It basically says that because there hasn't been robust research on the individual chemical compounds within cannabis, all of this literature or conversation and talk about the analgesic, the pain relieving, the medicinal effects of marijuana are actually inaccurate, seems to be one of the propositions of the article. And they're basically saying that cannabis has so much in the plant, we can't isolate what's actually causing these reported effects of patients. And it also is talking a lot about, it's really poo-pooing medicinal marijuana, saying there aren't the same types of regulations to keep it safe, the same ones that keep recreational marijuana safe. So if you read this article and you were considering taking medical marijuana for some degree of pain, you may think twice about it. And I think that would be a mistake given what we know from Dr. Shaw and from medical professionals that have seen the very positive effects of it. So I do think that we need to discuss some of the misinformation in the article. And fortunately, we have an expert like Dr. Shaw on the show.
Thank goodness. I will say, though, I was surprised coming from the New York Times, which tends to have a more liberal bent these days, that it was such a negative take on that. So I'm really curious what you have to say.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. It was a surprise that it did have a very underlying pharmaceutical bias, I feel. And as I mentioned before the show, I ran a quick search to see if there were actually some sponsorships in history with Jane Brody, the article. The individual wrote the article, and I couldn't locate anything. But what I did find is that Jane Brody's nearly 80 years old. And so although a champion of science and nutrition as a writer for all these years, I believe that generation has more of an inherent bias in that they place what I would argue faith in the kind of FDA pharmaceutical driven process, which I think younger generations have grown more skeptical about, because this process really hides behind the argument that we can take active chemicals. They must be isolated from medicinal plants and only after proven in randomized controlled trials, many of which they don't disclose to the public or repeated numerous times, especially in the case of antidepressants, for example, where they just cherry pick data because so many of those studies prove to have no efficacy. And then, of course, once these RCTs are completed, pharmaceutical companies have exclusive rights to use this and effectively sell to the population. So moving into the article quickly, there's validity to certain points that she has about the lack of regulation within the cannabis industry. We have been talking about on the show for quite some time that there needs to be more standardization processes involved from a federal perspective. Dispensaries need to be more standardized because they're in one way operating as a quote medical outlet, but in other ways, I don't think they're being held to a standard of, let's say, just some other type of medical clinic providing some other service. The other point is the need to distinguish between medically indicated versus recreationally used cannabis. So that is also a good point, goes back into the fact that in this case, we have this unique plant that has profound medicinal benefits, but can also be used as a recreational and enjoyable substance, somewhat like alcohol. But to state that there's insufficient data to support medical marijuana is, I believe, purposefully misleading. Historically, as Chris has spoken in the past, there's been restrictions on ability to perform research on cannabis, and only recently have those restrictions started to be lifted. Yet, at the same time, there's FDA-approved medications of isolated cannabinoids, THC and CBD, specifically dronabinol and Epidiolex. So clearly, the appropriate studies were performed to gain FDA approval, which somehow she loses in the fact that there needs to be more research on the compounds individually if they're sold in dispensaries, but it's okay if pharmaceutical companies can sell them. I'm not sure on that. So that's kind of my initial take on the article, and I'll just send it out to our guests, see what they have to say.
How about it, ladies? What do you think? Anything to comment on as far as this news article?
So I think the thing that I can add, while this isn't our expertise as Open Door, because our expertise is retail, is that, it's looking at it as a one-sided, only American standpoint. If they would go look to Israel or anywhere else, some of these things have been done and they have been shown to have medical help and effects and a positive influence. So I think I echo a lot of what Christian said, as well as just wanting to add that if we looked outside of ourselves and not only view ourselves as American as the end all be all, you would find a lot of other things out there that would be educational, informative, and, kind of guide in the right direction.
I concur. I absolutely concur. And I would ask anybody that's, watching our show that, especially if this comes up, this is the New York Times. This is an extremely well-read and respected periodical. And the fact that an article can come out like this, it could affect a lot of people on what they might vote on in upcoming elections regarding the legalization of both recreational and medical marijuana. So I think this is important. And I think it's important that we talk about it and we bring forward, positive information that's well-researched and funded the correct way. So I appreciate all the insight. I look forward to coming back with our beautiful bevy of blonde panelists, which you'll get to meet shortly. We'll be back with CBD Chef Mary after this brief message.
Coming to you after our hike that we finished. Buster exercises 3 miles. Today is a recovery day because he did 8-mile hike over the weekend, broken up into 2. But what I want to share with you is this company here called Simple Changes. I learned about them and I absolutely love the concept. It's wellness, community, and organization. So as you can see here, I love the wrapping. I love purple, and it comes with 3 products. So I've been trying them out. First, it's the hemp oil spray. Then it's the hemp oil dropper and the hemp oil ball. So I'll be trying all of these out. I've been exploring them, exploring the ingredients. I met with the team on Zoom. Really, really, really neat product. And I love the fact that they also want to incorporate healthy practices. So they come with a little journal and something about simple success guide. So, simple changes.
Well, welcome back. Up next, we have Mary Adams, owner of CBD Chef Mary. She has a culinary degree from LeCordonBleu, a well-recognized school, top of the creme de la creme, you could say. She's been cooking with cannabis before we even knew how to decarb cannabis. So she has been doing this for a long time and has a really good understanding of it. We got to learn a little bit about her the last time she was in, so make sure you check out some of our past episodes on our website. But she contributes monthly recipes to High Life magazine and Cannabis Cooking, and she recently published a cookbook. So we're very excited to have her tell us a little bit about the new cookbook. But welcome back, Mary. And as you give a moment to introduce yourself a little bit further, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you've been cooking for cannabis for such a long time?
Thanks, Melissa. It's so great to be back. I have so much respect for the show and for what you all stand for and the reach to patients. And ultimately, my goal with food and explaining about cannabis in food is to normalize the conversation about cannabis as medicine and as part of a normal diet. So many people are not smoking their medicine and are looking for healthier alternatives. And so for me, I was a very heavy person for a long time and had to look for healthy alternatives to change my lifestyle. And one of the things I love about cannabis is it's become such a participatory medicine that you can pair it with different kinds of food that have similar terpenes and profiles, right, genetic profiles, and actually increase the value of your medicine and the onset of it, as well as the value of what you've invested your money in.
That's so wonderful to hear. And, I'm flipping through your cookbook, and it's a lot of wonderful, as healthy recipes as well. Roasted beet hummus, cannabis deviled eggs. These are some of my favorite foods without the cannabis. Now they're going to be even closer to my heart. But what made you decide to first infuse food beyond gummies? I mean, that's what most of us are used to seeing nowadays. But what really motivated you to do that?
Some friends of mine were opening a kava kratom bar. And I had a friend that had Crohn's disease. And so we were looking at alternatives and different ways to increase their amount of medicine that they were being able to take. I mean, even if you're smoking, there's only a certain amount of medicine that you can intake and ingest. And so if you're using things like coconut oil and other edibles without things like heavy sugars or other chemicals that gummies have, then there's a better chance of creating homeostasis and the entourage effect, which means you're going to get more from your medicine.
I concur.
So Melissa showed us a bit of your cookbook. What made you decide to write it in the first place?
I did a cooking class by Zoom after COVID started. In Florida, I can't work with your medicine, but I can teach you how to work with your medicine. So it worked very well. And the feedback was so amazing about learning how to change THCA into THC through the decarbing process, which is very scary for a lot of people. And then now, with things like medicine that comes in a concentrated syringe from a dispensary, or even CBD and THC that comes in drops, people are looking for ways to get that medicine in themselves, but not everybody looks at food the way I do. I mean, I look at every recipe and see a way to put cannabis in it. So I like to kind of open everybody's eyes. And I think looking at the cookbook, there's some very simple recipes like a chilled mango soup that has like 5 ingredients in a blender. It couldn't possibly be any easier. And after you start to look through things like mac and cheese and a way to make a decarbed rub for your pork roast or your fish using decarbed cannabis, different ways to incorporate medicine to keep your homeostasis going. That way you don't have to smoke. It gives you healthier alternatives.
Chef, can you share with us some of your favorite recipes from these cookbooks?
Thanks for asking. Sometimes it's hard to pick, but I do love the mango. It's called chilled mango soup, but I actually like to serve it when I do parties and things as a chilled mango shooter. And often I'll make a whole container full and then just sip on it through the day. It's one of the first recipes, I think, that shows up in the cookbook. It's very easy. It's a blender and some frozen mangoes, a little bit of honey, which is very good for you. I like to encourage people to use local honey because that way you're creating your own immune system with the local bees and the local flowers that are going to come out during pollen time anyway. So mangoes also are one of those entourage effect foods with cannabis. So the myrcene in mangoes actually brings on the onset of cannabis faster, and it increases the ability for cannabis to work. So I'd have to say that's probably my favorite, but the avocado coleslaw is well worth a look.
They all sound phenomenal, but you did mention a couple of times about decarbing. Can you explain to our viewers exactly what that is?
Yeah, I have to say, when I first started cooking with cannabis, I didn't even know you had to do that. So we used to just throw what we had in the crock pot or in whatever we were making. And I think science and medicine has shown us that the best results you can get are changing THCA, which is in the raw cannabis, to THC. That happens when we smoke. But if you're cooking, the best way to do that is to heat that. And I always say we are 420 people. So we decarb at 240 for 40 minutes. And I've got a video up, of course, to teach you how to do that. It's very easy. I like to use a mason jar. Make sure it's an oven-proof jar on a cookie sheet with a towel so your glass doesn't touch your heat surface. 240 for 40 minutes. And then once you pull it out, allow that to cool off. And then you can use that decarbed cannabis like you would any other spice. So you can add it like you would basil or oregano or thyme, to anything from roasted chicken to potato salad. You can also then take that and infuse oil or plant milk. You can infuse regular milk. You can do all kinds of things. You can make cannabis cheese with milk or ice cream or any number of things once you start looking at cannabis a little bit differently.
I love hearing that. I've mentioned it to our viewers before, but I am a type 1 diabetic. I'm not going to run out and eat a bunch of cannabis gummies.
No.
I don't eat regular gummies. I wouldn't eat cannabis gummies either. So seeing that there are healthy recipes that can actually treat cannabis and food as medicine is close to my heart. And this cookbook's beautiful, amazing photos in here as well, all colored and glossy. Where can our viewers find your cookbook?
Well, the cookbook is available through ganjabeachmedia.com, and there'll be videos up on Friday nights with lessons on how to cook or cook with me with the recipes in the book. We're actually working on book number 2 now, so I'm really excited about that. I wanted to give a shout out to Ganja Beach and, of course, the guys at Nugtopia who actually did the original artwork for the book. So super excited about it.
I definitely encourage you to take a look and find this cookbook, add it to your collection, and learn a few other ways to ingest cannabis a little bit healthier than the typical gummies. Something a little bit different anyway. Well, we appreciate you coming back to the show, Chef Mary. It's always a pleasure to see you. And you can contact her and reach out to her. We have all of our guests' contact information on our website, thebuddingreport.com. Please go there. You can see previous episodes. You can look at the episode she was with us before, and contact as well. So you can ask any questions about recipes, or maybe if you didn't catch where to pick up the cookbook, you can find that as well. We thank you very much for coming again, Chef Mary. We look forward to seeing you back in the studio at a future time. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with our next 2 guests.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Hello. Here in my lunch run in the middle of the heat where I get my break really quick after training clients and leading some classes. I am taking my Simply Satisfy. It is 3 sprays, organic hemp. Next one is my Simply Start. You can take it twice a day or once a day. I already took my morning dose. I'm now taking my afternoon dose. One little yummy organic hemp. Check them out. Simply Generous. Helicopter. All right, time to go train and run down the hill. Bye-bye.
And we're back once again. Now I get to welcome Kathryn Blackwell and Chelsea Mulligan, co-founders of The Open Door. We met them briefly in our news section, but just to give you a little more background, Kathryn, who is the CEO, has built a successful reputation for elevating brands through effective e-commerce development, product innovation, and strategic communications. Chelsea Mulligan, who is the COO since 2013, she has forged an extensive industry resume at the executive level, specializing in the operational compliance and the quality management for the cannabis business. So That's a pedigree and a half from both of you. To have the two of you together working in this company, the Open Door. Tell us a little bit about the company and what it is that you do.
So the Open Door is a franchise dispensary that we're offering up to license holders or other investors in the industry. Really, it's a way to get them into their operations for their dispensary quicker. We have floor plans already designed. We've got all the interior design already done. And we're sharing Chelsea's expertise over so many years with the standard operating procedures. So this is really eliminating the learning curve for either a new license holder or really helping someone expand their operation and make it even more profitable if they have already been operating a dispensary.
Thank you, Kathryn. And I have to say, it's unique enough as it stands that you two women are doing this together, and I have to say cheers to that. But beyond the uniqueness of you two leading this company, what else makes Open Door so unique?
So I think that I'll expand on what Kathy already said as far as the uniqueness. We can offer them real estate help. We can offer an existing licensee that may not want to sell out to a larger company because they'd like to keep their own business and have a legacy for their family or whatever that is. And we can help them instead of just taking over, right? Kathy's favorite phrase is in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And that truly is what we have created. So when you think about the real estate aspect, the fact that they don't have to go this alone, every licensee has kind of figured it out. Even if they have previous business experience, for some reason, a lot of people think that you have to reinvent the wheel. So since we offer something that is already created, they don't have to figure it out for 2 or 3 years and they'd be like, oh, this is the best practice. We're able to just give that to them.
So Kathryn and Chelsea, why don't you give us some background on why the two of you collaborated to create the Open Door?
So I spent my whole entire career in the quick service restaurant franchising business. So I saw the benefit of having tried and true practices, standardized operations, and some oversight and support for the operators. I got out of quick service restaurants a couple of years ago and met our strategic partner, Brian McLaren, who is with Zone Properties, and he focuses on cannabis real estate zoning and permitting, which we all know that's one of the most difficult pieces of trying to get a dispensary. When I told him my idea of bringing that traditional franchise model to the cannabis industry, his eyes lit up and he said, you have to meet Chelsea. So he's actually the one that introduced us, and it's been a fantastic partnership between the two of us with her operational expertise and my more strategic on the franchising side and the franchising model, and the oversight and the compliance that we can help with as well. The compliance issue is obviously very important, just to be able to keep your dispensary doors open. And that's where, Chelsea's expertise and her team to be able to go in and really help our operators stay in compliance, especially with regulations being changing so often and so quickly.
And, I think I'll add to that with Kathryn's comment about regulations changing. And Christian, I'll speak to what you said about needing more standardization in this industry. A little bit of my background outside of operations and compliance is also standardization and working with regulators and legislatures. And I think that we offer the ability to create that standard, even though it's not federally legal, right? And if we can create those best practices, once it goes federally legal, I think our franchisees stand a better chance at being competitive and not being pushed out or having other issues meeting regulations.
Very, very interesting. I want to turn a little bit to investors and investments, because that's really been in the news lately with the market fluctuating so much. How can a cannabis franchise model help investors with their direct cannabis investments, especially in a retail dispensary?
Well, I think for investors, it's all about creating more value for their license and for their operation. If we can help them improve their operations, create more profitability, get to market quicker and more efficiently, and bypass that learning curve, that's got some extreme value to their operation, to their business, or to the license if they choose to sell it in the future. So yes, we're here to help operators, but I think there's a real value to the investors in these licenses and in these organizations as well.
It also protects their investments, right? In this industry, you don't necessarily know if people are doing things properly, what they're doing with your money. I mean, we've seen all of, some of these big names and even smaller names that it comes out that they've misappropriated all of these funds, or where did it go? How are they not profitable yet? So it protects their investment to know that there's an actual already made way to do things, and that they're not going to find out that, they didn't put in good enough security procedures and somebody's been stealing large amounts of product for multiple months. Those kinds of things.
That's why that franchise model works so well. I mean, knowing that you're coming from QSR, restaurants, there's a reason why people invest in quick serve restaurants, because it is a proven model and you know what you're getting and what to expect and how to actually, go through the steps, especially if it's not something you're familiar with. I was going to ask, where are you ladies located at?
Phoenix.
Oh, you're in Phoenix. Okay, perfect. So what are your thoughts? I mean, especially now, obviously Arizona's just opened up to recreational use as well as the medical, which it has been for some time. As we see more and more states open up, is this something that you are spreading throughout the country? Do you see a lot of potential growth here?
For sure. Kathy and I both have this vision of there's an open door, hopefully multiple of them in every state. And then eventually internationally, because Kathy has really great expertise, doing quick service restaurants and franchising internationally. So I'll also let her speak to that. But for me, I want one in every state. Arizona isn't our only focus.
This is interesting, though, because I'm in Phoenix as well. So perhaps the three of us, meet up for lunch sometime to discuss some ideas.
Yes, please. I had no idea you were in Phoenix as well.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, we can do after the show a quick email and then follow up later, because I got to jump to see patients, but I want to meet up with you two.
Wonderful. Great.
Is connecting people. So that's wonderful. Well, I think it's so exciting to see these opportunities coming up now. I mean, where we are actually having franchise within the cannabis industry, where it's becoming more and more widespread. It's becoming more available and more mainstream. As much as sometimes you don't want everything to be over-regulated, by seeing these things happen, I think that's going to actually come in side to side with regulations, because as we see this franchise setup, along with that comes banking, along with that comes investment. I think that everything's going to kind of, fall into place. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, I do. And I absolutely agree with you. And that's one of our goals with creating this dispensary model, really bringing a true retail experience into for a consumer, whether they're brand new to cannabis, maybe they've been hesitant about trying it for their particular ailment, but really bringing it more mainstream and with something that they know what they can expect with, again, the franchise model. They know exactly what they're going to get when they come in. And one of our big goals as well is the education, being able to provide our bud tenders with ongoing education about the products that are out on the market and how they're being used and who they should be recommended to for consumers, but also for the consumer as well. We want to make sure that they're getting the information that they need and are feeling comfortable about coming in and seeing us to be able to rely on the expertise that our bud tenders will have.
That's honestly the most you can ask for. It's in that reliability, know what you can expect. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the work that you're doing in the industry and helping become it a little bit more spread, more common knowledge to everyone out there. If you want to contact any of our guests, please go to thebuddingreport.com. We have links to join any of them. Reach out to them if you're looking for investments and want to start your own franchise. This is a great opportunity and a great time to do it. So take advantage. So thank you again. Thank you to my wonderful co-hosts. Join us next week. We have our guests will be Nathaniel Garyn and Dr. Ted Emanuel. Please again visit our website. Tune in next week. Have a great week in the meantime. We'll see you then.